Hey guys, this is Lauren. The episode that you're about to hear was recorded a few weeks ago, so any age or date references that might have confused you, that's why they may not be up to date. Additionally, since recording this episode, I did learn about a website called babyboxco.com. The Baby Box is a safe sleeping space for babies. You can get one free at a lot of hospitals, but the website also offers free courses. So they're very short and very easy to do. You can learn the basics of safe sleeping, and there are other courses after that as well. And they do reward you with a free baby box. And I believe you can also pay a few bucks for shipping and get a free mattress as well. So I thought that was a really neat resource, and I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. Hope you enjoyed the episode. All right, everyone. So we hope you had a nice week and all that jazz. Today we are talking about crib sleeping.
Hey.
So, we'll talk a little bit about safe sleeping, things that have happened with us that we did or didn't do. What else? We'll just talk about whatever we talk about.
Yeah, we don't really have an outline. We're kind of winging it on this one.
Winging it. Um, okay. So I know you co-slept for a long time. So when you did get to the crib, was there any struggle or any learning points?
Um, Definitely had to do a lot of the cry it out method because he didn't want to be in there alone. He wasn't used to it for so long. Um, it was actually your bachelorette party when my husband decided to do it when I wasn't home. He texted me when I was out and was like, "Oh, and by the way, Tim's in his crib," and I was like, "What?" and
Mhm.
wanted to cry immediately. But when I got home, he was already sleeping and everything was fine. It ended up having to be my husband that had to put him to bed for a while because he would play me. Like babies are so smart and they know what they can and cannot get from what parent, and he would play me. Like my husband would put him down and it would be no issue. I put him down and he would cry and cry, and I'd go in and I'd try to console him and put him back in and he'd cry. There was when he was older, he would still have issues like that sometimes, and I'd actually have to crawl in the crib with him and just lay with him. Like there, yeah, it was a lot. Um, it was a lot, but then he was so good at it, and then everything was great, and everything was good, and then we moved, and now it's bad again. How about you?
Well, we started in the crib when Oliver was like, I think 3 months old. He was sleeping through the night. So I was like, I think we'll all sleep better if he's in his own room. Um, so we did that. And it went really well until I guess like a month or two ago. He's, with the teething, I think is the thing. He's waking up at night now and um, not wanting to nap now, and that's a whole thing. Um,
Yeah.
we could probably fill a whole episode about sleep training, but the actual crib itself, he liked it. I mean, because before that he was sleeping in the okay, I don't know if I've explained this. The pack and play folded up into the a bassinet shape.
Sure.
So like the pack and play mattress is what he was sleeping on. So I mean, I'm
Okay.
sure the crib mattress is like way more comfortable than that. Um, and even now he sleep better in the crib than in the pack and play. Um, but we always have been like I've always been very strict about following like the safe sleep practices. Um, and that's one thing that I felt like we should talk a little bit about on here. Have you always like adhere? What is the past? Have you always really followed the rules?
Um, I don't know, because I don't think I really paid attention to the rules. So maybe you should go first and inform me of these rules. And I'll tell you if we did it or not.
Yeah, so the big thing, I don't know if it was already big when you had Tim or not, but at least now is the back to sleep thing. So they need to be put down on their back.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was something I never would have risked with Oliver. The only time he didn't sleep on his back is if he was sleeping on my chest.
Hmm. Which I think is
Like naps.
also kind of funny because every few years that changes,
It does.
and it's really funny to me because in one, like a while ago, it was like they had to sleep on their side, and then it was their back, never been their stomach, which is obvious. But then there was like the wet, you had to have like a wedge under them, and it's just like every few years it changes back to what it was previously. We always come full circle and end up back somewhere where we've been before. But yes, we Tim always slept on his back unless um, he was sleeping on my chest as well.
Yeah, I agree. Like it changes a lot. So on one hand, it's like probably not that big of a deal if a kid, like, for example, once he started to roll himself over and sleep on his stomach or whatever, I wasn't as worried about it, you know? And it
Mm-hmm.
helped to know that, like, in the past they recommended different things. But, you know, as if the latest, most safest, you know, opinion is that they have to be on their back, then I always definitely put him on his back to start. Even now, I always put him on his back and he'll change to how he wants to be. But I'm like, this is how I'm laying you down. Um, So that was the big one. Having nothing in the crib. So there's not supposed to be anything in there with them at all until I think like a year maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, except for a pacifier. Um, I never put him in there with blankets or anything. He does have a lovey that I started using like a month ago. Um, a lot of time that'll be in there. Do you know what the lovey is?
Um, I don't know what your lovey is.
But, like, you know, they're, like, the little animals with, like, the little blanket bottom thing.
Yes.
I don't know, actually. It's, like, the shape of them, I think, is
Uh
supposedly
huh.
supposed to be safe for some reason. I don't know why. I don't understand the science behind it, um, but they're small, so, I mean, I let him his is a koala, by the way. But, anyway, I let him have that, and I let him have his pacifier, which he Oliver does not use pacifiers, but, he does occasionally chew on his Wubbanub. And that's the only, like, a regular pacifier he has no interest in. The Wubbanub, he still won't suck on, but he will chew on it or whatever. So I'll put him down with the the Wubbanub in there and sometimes the Lovey, and that's it. But never blankets.
So that's one rule I did not follow. Tim always had his blanket that he still uses to this day. It's uh, an infant blanket, if you will. It's his whale blanket. Um, we always put him in with that because I'm a blanket sleeper. Like right now, I currently have two comforters and a sheet that I sleep under. So I'm always cold. So I just figured that he was always cold. So I figured it was kind of, I don't know, rude, I guess, for him not to sleep with one or like any blankets.
I felt that way too at first.
So he's always had a blanket because even when like I said, we co-slept for a while, so he always had a blanket even when he was like weeks old because I was right beside him. I would wake up every time he cooed, every time he like any ruffle, like you know what I mean? Like I was such a light sleeper that I woke up over any movement that came from our bed. So he's always slept with a blanket because I was so close to him for a while. And when we finally got him in his crib, I think he was like 10 months, 11 months old. Um, so he was like basically to the point where he could have that, I guess,
Mhm.
on his own. So I guess you could say that is the one rule that I didn't follow because he's always had it. And he also, when we put him in his crib, there was this one little like elephant, which now it's Scout the dog. But there was this elephant we got, and it was like kind of like a stargazer. You pushed a button, it would play like lullabies for like 15 minutes, and it would shoot stars on the ceiling in like different colors. That was also in his crib, and that was like the only way we could get him like to stay and not be upset. Like we would turn it on. Like even now, like with Scout, we turn him on, and there are some times where if he's not asleep, instead of him turning it back on, he will come out because we've already spoke about this. My son likes to come out. So he'll come out and come in my room and tell me that Scout's off, and I have to get up and turn Scout back on.
Aw.
So yeah, no, we never really followed the nothing in the crib rule.
So I also felt like Oliver was approaching, once he could roll over and pull up and everything, I thought like, oh, he's old enough to have a blanket now. And so I let him nap, not sleep, but nap with one, I think like twice. And then I read something that made me never ever want to do it again until he was like at least a year. There's a mom in one of the mom Facebook groups where people were discussing this exact topic, and a lot of the moms were like very much like, I let my baby sleep how they want, if they're comfortable, whatever, like those rules are just paranoid. And then there was a mom that came in and said, my child was, I think her kid was 9 months or something, said that her kid could roll over, could pull up, all of that, and she put him down with a blanket and he strangled. And it scared the shit out of me. Like that just, I mean, it broke my heart too, like because that seems like you'd think at that point like, yeah, they can move freely. There's nothing to worry about,
Yeah.
But apparently it can still happen. So yeah, I'll probably be scared of that for a little while once he's more aware, and I can tell that he's more aware. So like, which usually happens about a year. Maybe we'll try it again, but he also doesn't like to be covered with a blanket like if he's in my bed. So I feel good, like I don't have to worry so much about it. But yeah, I don't know. Whenever I read that story, I just thought I really want to mention this on the podcast because there were literally hundreds of moms on that post saying that, they didn't think it was a big deal to put the blanket in the crib. And I, at the time too, I didn't think, I thought, okay, I've waited long enough. Now is the time. And after that, I was like, no, I can't believe that would happen.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying, that's a very unfortunate event that took place. However, being a mom, there are so many terrible incidents that happen, like swimming, for example. Have you heard of dry drowning?
Yes, I did. And it's that also, I was paranoid about that for a while too.
I'm
Tell about it
still
for
paranoid.
everyone who doesn't. Why don't you like explain?
Okay, so dry drowning essentially is, let's say your child goes under in a pool and they come out and they're fine. You know what I mean? Like a couple minutes go by and they're back to breathing, back to being going in the pool and all this stuff. They can drown like up to 48 hours later because the water went in their lungs and it will just sit there. And then it shows like I think a day later it shows symptoms as like a fever. In older kids, they'll just be so tired and not want to do anything. They'll just want to sleep. And essentially, they'll go to sleep and they won't wake up. They will drown completely out of the water, completely out of the pool, sometimes not even in the same day that they were in a pool. And this is something really new because this happened to my mom has a hot tub and she doesn't keep it hot. So I don't want to hear anything about having a child in a hot tub. Mm-hmm. So I had Tim in it literally this past summer. And I was in the hot tub with him. My mom was standing beside. My husband was standing on the other side. We were all just hanging out. And there was this crazy looking caterpillar on this plant next to like the hot tub. So I'm like, ew, what is that? So Drew's looking, my mom looks, and I literally turned away for 2 seconds. And when I turned back, Tim's like literally looking at me soaking wet. And I'm just like, what happened? I mean, like hot tubs are like a foot deep, you know what I mean? So he was able to like stand back up and everything was fine. But you know, like he's like shocked and freaking out. And now I'm freaking out. And like, then I'm like, oh my God, well, now I had to worry about this for the next 2 days. Like, am I going to lose my child from dry drowning? And I'm explaining this to Drew, and Drew's like, that's not a thing. And I'm like, Google it. So then he Googled it, and he's like, oh my God. And then I'm explaining it to my mom, and my mom is like, I've never heard of that. And I'm like, well, I don't know if it's something new they've discovered or what, but it's a thing. And so it's like something I worry about nonstop, and it freaks me out. Like Tim has not gone underwater on purpose in any pool, and he's turning 3. I constantly get judged for him not knowing how to swim and all this stuff, and I'm just like, he's fine. Like he has fun in the pool. He holds on to me in the pool. Like we swim together kind of thing. But I'm like, I'm not ready to take my hands off of him because I don't want this to happen. I had it happen to one of my family members' friends, and they're in high school. They were swimming at the pool all day, and then he had issues like breathing later that night. So they went to the hospital, and he literally his lungs were filled with water, and he was like 17 years old. So it can happen to anyone. But it's something definitely on the, I guess, newer side. I guess we're becoming more aware, but there's things like that. There's things like all kind of things that if being a parent, you're going to, of course, freak out over. But at the end of the day, it's the odds of it happening to you are so slim because, I mean, like you said, there are so many moms that were commenting on that mom's post saying, oh, I never knew that could happen. It was very unlucky and unfortunate, like exactly for me with Tim's accident. I have had so many people come up to me telling me about how their child fell out of bed or things of that nature, and it was a very tragic, unfortunate event that happened, and it does happen. I've heard of other stories who it's happened to, but it's not something that is wide and known. So being a parent, you can't really freak out over everything, and I'm not saying like pick and choose the ones you freak out over either, but I just think there's um things, I don't know where I'm trying to go with this.
Well, it's like there are so many different things. Okay, like dry drowning, for example. Like it doesn't mean don't take your kids swimming,
Yes.
but like something that your kids, I mean, because swimming, it's like unless that's just not a part of your life, then for most people, I think swimming is like a normal part of summer. There's no reason to not include that in your kids' lives. But I think like when it's something, um, that you can help, that there's no reason not to help, and you know about it, then you should. I mean, there's plenty of people who just are just not aware of, risks like dry drowning or the blanket strangulation stuff or things like that. And I'm not, it's not to blame or whatever. And then at the same time, like, we were talking about back to sleep. I remember back when we were in the early sleep stages reading a lot more about that. And some parents were so stressed out. They were like, my kid will only sleep on his stomach. I mean, you should do your very best to put him to sleep on his back, but if that kid like is only sleeping that way and you have figured out a way that feels safe to you as a parent, that's your decision. But if it's just like, well, I think he'd be more comfortable on his stomach, just don't.
Yeah.
If it means that your kid, needs to cry for a few minutes before they go to sleep, let them cry. It's better to be safe. And I think another thing is that, like you were saying, like we're learning all of these things. I think that a whole lot of the things that we're learning all just got chalked up to SIDS
Yes.
in past years. And now we're learning that, like, SIDS sometimes is its own thing, and other times it comes from things that we now know can happen, like dry drowning or like the baby needs to sleep in a different position or like blanket strangulation and things. So um I just think when you can, you should just take every when it's a safety precaution. When it's something, you know, I would never say don't
Preventable.
take your kids swimming. Like Oliver swims, and he has gotten water on his face. And you have to learn as a mom, you're going to be afraid of everything. So you have to learn the balance of like what you're able to let go of type of thing,
Yeah.
like with that, I had to just say to myself, like, okay, Oliver is not going to dry drown over this one splash of water in his face. I need to let go of this,
Yeah.
but I also I have another friend who, was taught her and her husband were talking about how like some babies, people will put them underwater and they like can learn to swim all on their own. See, and like
Mhm.
I would never risk that personally.
Yeah.
And it's not, again, it's hard because it's like maybe that is the more natural thing and maybe she's right and maybe it would work out really well. And I don't think down at all on anyone who, you know, follows like any parent who's like following their intuition and doing their very best. Like you're not a bad mom. You're not, it's
Yeah.
nothing like I'm not better than you or smarter than you, but I just think like any risk that I know about at all, like I'm going to prevent it.
Yeah. That's understandable.
And sleep is the scariest thing in the world to me because you're also asleep and you're away, unless the baby is right next to you.
Yeah.
And even then, sometimes, like, you aren't fully aware. So it's like, and it's hours, nighttime. It's like nap time is one thing. I can go in and check on him, but at night, it's hours away. So, like, that is the scariest time to me. And so I feel like so passionate that it has to be the safest time too.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, so that's our blanket thing, but I mean, I don't know. Probably at a year, I'll start letting him have one, but like I said, I don't even know if
Does
he'll use
he
it.
does he move around a lot at night?
He does move around a lot.
Oh, okay. So that's
Yeah,
another thing. Tim, well, not anymore, but when he was a baby, he was like a statue. He like didn't move around a lot at night. So I think that's another reason that I felt okay with him having a blanket because literally I would put it on him perfectly. When I come in the next morning, it was still on him perfectly. So,
yeah. See, that's another thing too. Okay, I saw someone call. They were literally calling it child abuse that the parent swaddled their child past um a couple of weeks, which I thought was crazy. I mean, you can swaddle your kid for a few months if you
yeah.
want, but they were like saying that that was child abuse, and this was a doctor who was saying it was child abuse.
Oh, doctors.
And it's like, don't be that asshole. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
everyone knows their kid well too. Like Oliver, I stopped swaddling him after like 2 weeks. He hated the swaddle.
I'll say I stopped swallowing Tim after we left the hospital.
Yeah, like a lot of babies don't like the swaddle. A lot of babies do well with the swaddle. And I think the blankets, like you said, like, if I knew that Oliver would sleep better with a blanket and that he would stay still all night,
Mhm.
then maybe it would be a different story. But everyone knows their kid a little differently. So, I think it's important when we have the conversations to not be so like accusatory, or so like finger pointing so many fingers,
Yeah.
Um, because really nobody knows your kid the way you do. I mean, you know everything there is to know pretty much about your own kid.
Yep. All right, so let's get to another rule.
Um, do. Well, that's pretty. Oh, this is kind of like the same rule, I guess, but the like crib bumpers
Oh,
and
yes.
things like that. You're not supposed to use those.
Mhm.
Did you ever use things like that?
No, I never had any.
Yeah, me either. I was at first worried that like he could hurt himself on the wood of the crib, and then I read up on that and realized that was not gonna. It's just not. He's fine. He's gonna be fine. And the
Yeah.
crib bumpers are actually more of a danger.
So again, like with Tim, he never really moved, so I didn't have to worry about him getting close to the side or anything like that. So, We didn't
Yeah.
need them. And like that, I think became a thing like as I was pregnant with Tim, because I remember like seeing people before I had Tim who had them on their cribs. And then I remember being told not to have them on the crib. So I think that's like a recent discovery. Um, but I really don't understand the point to them anyway. They just seemed more, I guess, design than
Yeah, it's just not
functionality.
necessary, right?
Yeah. So I was like, it's not like my child's gonna get his arm stuck in the crib. Like he was clearly small enough that his arm could fit in and out through the crib space. So it's like I don't understand what we're protecting here.
Yeah, I agree. Not letting your baby sleep anywhere that's not the crib. Um, like the car seat, which I'll mention this again on the car seat episode, but never let your baby sleep in a car seat.
I never let Tim like I never like got Tim to sleep and put him in his car seat, but if we got home and he was sleeping, I never woke him up out of his car seat.
Yeah, that's how I was when Oliver was little, and that's another thing I learned about afterward was that babies can very easily suffocate in their car seats
Yeah.
when they're not in the car, because the base of the car seat keeps it angled in such a way that the baby can breathe. But the car seat itself is not meant to sit on the floor.
Yeah.
Um, and I definitely didn't know that, and I let Oliver sleep in the, like you said, like when we got home or whatever a few times. And again, like heard story about a baby that was like, I think this baby was like almost a year old or something, and they suffocated that way.
That's
It has to
unfortunate.
do with the pressure on the lung, the way that the
Yeah.
pressure rests on their lungs.
I think it
Um,
also has to deal with like their like the angle of their head, like it like closes their
mhm,
windpipe, I guess, if you will.
yes.
They don't have the strength to put their head back up.
Um, and that's pretty much like all the rules per se. Another thing that I wanted to mention was since we were talking about blankets, did you ever use a sleep sack?
A what?
A sleep sack? Oh my God, you've never?
I've never heard of it.
These are the greatest invention. I actually need to get a bigger one now. Um, but it's basically like a gown kind of a thing that zips up, so you can put, if your baby's wearing like a onesie or whatever, you can stick that inside the sleep sack and just zip it up. And it's like a blanket, but it stays on them. It's attached to them. You know,
Oh, that's kind of cute.
it's amazing. And the great thing about it is that like you can keep putting them in a sleep sack when they're a little bit older. Like when I worked at a daycare in the past, some of the toddlers wore sleep sacks to nap time, and they were like, some of them were like 2 years old.
Yeah.
Um, I am a huge fan of the sleep sack, and there's all different kinds. Like we had right now we have like a long sleeve fuzzy one that he's about to outgrow. But over the summer we had one that was like it was sleeveless. It was like a tank top basically, so his arm stuck out of it, and it was like a thinner material. Um, and I really like them for layering too in the winter because it's I feel like that's difficult to get them like the perfect temperature. I would always bundle Oliver too much and he'd be hot, which is also not good. So, the sleep sacks make it really easy to do that as well, to control the temperature.
I like that.
Yeah, they're super awesome. Definitely recommend that to everyone. Um, and then okay, I have one more thing on this topic, um, which is flathead.
Oh, goodness. I knew it was coming.
Um, what what is your experience in the flathead world?
So Tim never had it. And I think it's because I talk with this about with my coworker because that is becoming a thing nowadays. I know several acquaintances who have had their child have that. And my coworker explained it perfectly. Like, she was like, my son never had that because I never put him down. And I was like, well, that makes sense because I also never put Tim down. Like, literally every time Tim took a nap, it was on my chest because I was home and able. It's just comfy. You know what I mean? Like, you nap, it's fine. I'm here. I'm just watching TV. Let's do it. So, Tim, the only time Tim was not in my arms was when I was in the shower and he was in his swing. So, I don't know if that has to do with it or not, but Tim never had it. And I believe it is from your child laying flat, right, for too long?
Yeah, being on their head too much because babies' heads are soft, as you and I know. Hashtag square
Their
head.
heads.
um, so I mean, yeah, if they're on one side too much, it will flatten.
Yeah, like my coworker, one of her friends had it, and their excuse was, "Well, my child doesn't like tummy time, so we never do tummy time." And I'm like, "Your child is weeks old and does it know like no child likes tummy time, but you got to do it."
Yeah. Oh, I do want to say before I forget because I almost just forgot. Babies can get flathead for another reason, which has to do with birth. Like if the baby was stuck under your ribs or something, they can be born with flathead. So that, not all babies have flathead because they didn't, you know, their parents didn't do a certain thing. But in general, it's a behavioral
Mhm.
thing. Anyway, had to insert that.
Yeah. Um and I'm not dodging parents who their child has that. Like, it's understandable. You're a working mom, or it happened at the daycare, or like, you know what I mean? There's so many reasons or explanations as to why it happened. I'm just saying, for my instance, my son never had it because I never put him down. He was always in my arms, on my chest. Never, the only time he was laying on his back was when he went to sleep at night.
Yeah. For
Because you
me,
can't baby a baby. Heyo.
yes, as our almost viral post.
Who would have thought?
um yeah, okay, I did not hold him all the time. I did hold him a lot, but the biggest thing is when Oliver was that little, we pretty much I would take shifts in his what position he was in. So, like he would sleep on his back at night and then he'd get up in the morning, nurse, and sleep on my chest for nap. Then he'd get up and we'd do tummy time. Then I would maybe if I sat him down to go get breakfast or something, I would sit him so that he was resting in the boppy. Then the next time I'd put him in the swing, and so he was just spending most of his day in different positions throughout, and it wasn't like we didn't have like a specific schedule or we didn't have, I mean, like we didn't
Yeah.
always do a great job with tummy time either. Tummy time, whatever, that's a whole thing. But you know what I mean? And then I did spend a lot of time holding him and wearing him. And then sometimes he'd be in the car seat because we'd use the stroller, which the car seat clicked into, or, we'd drive somewhere. So, I mean, he just was never in one position for that long. Um, and I was always like really paranoid about that he was gonna get flathead because when he was asleep in the bassinet thing at the time, anytime I check on him, he would always put his head to one side and he would put it so close to the edge. By the way, it freaked me out so much. Like the wall part.
Hmm.
I was like, oh my God, can you breathe? You can breathe. You just want to stress me out. Um, but anyway, so his head would always be on that one side, and I was like, oh, he's gonna get flathead, but he never did. And that was one thing. I guess I was like pretty mindful about it. I didn't want him always laying in one specific way. But also just that was just how it was for me. Like, I didn't he just wasn't always doing the same thing,
Yeah.
which I mean, again, we're not trying to like bash any moms whose babies had flathead, and since we didn't have them, it's hard to say how easily it could have happened or whatever, especially if you're busy. But yeah, I mean, that was my thoughts on it. So I mean, I would say if you can avoid flathead, you should make the effort.
Yeah.
You should make the effort, because like I said, I really don't think it was that difficult for me to like continually switch out the position that he was in. It wasn't like every 5 minutes I was doing, it's just that like whenever I did need to put him down, it was in a different, we had options, and a boppy is $20, the swing is $40. I mean, and tummy
Yeah.
time is free. The baby wearing wrap, I don't know. Those were gifts, so I'm not sure how much they were, but you
But you can
can
get them for cheap.
hold, yeah, and you can hold your baby as well. So and then of course a stroller. I'm sure that everyone has a stroller. So like they're right there for under $100. You have plenty of options
Yes.
to just switch it up.
Yep. And I mean, I think my one friend's child, he actually had a muscle problem in his neck, and that's what caused his
Hmm.
flathead. So I mean, there are other causes for flathead than just having your child
Yeah.
on his back or their back all the time. Um, but there are ways to prevent flathead when you can prevent it.
Right.
Like in most cases, it is very preventable. So yes,
Yeah. Yeah. So that's our bit on flathead. But I mean, again, we all fuck up in one way or another. So even if it is because you didn't give enough tummy time or hold your baby enough or whatever,
yeah,
oh well, you learned. Maybe if you have another kid, you'll do something differently. But flatheads, the baby is fine. It's easy fix, but prevent it if you can. Maybe.
yeah, it'll save you money in the long run. Oh, oh,
Yes.
oh God!
Are
I
you all
clicked
right?
something. I clicked something and I didn't know it was a video, and it started playing, and I couldn't hear anything.
Well, did you have anything else to add on this topic?
No, I think we hit all of the nails. Um, I guess
Yeah.
you know what's best for your child. So, at the end of the day, keep doing you.
Yep. Just, s- safety, it's very important. But, you know, it's, your own intuition as a mom is invaluable. Um, but yeah, I definitely just like at some point on here, I wanted to go through all of those safety rules. Some of them I hadn't heard, some of them, a lot of people don't hear, and then things can happen that are easily preventable. So, you know, sometimes if we didn't know or if we had to make another choice, don't beat yourself up over it, but just, be as safe as you can when you can, because they're not going to be little for that long. They're not going to be terrible sleepers for that long. If you're having a baby with colic or a baby who's having a hard time sleeping, like that phase will pass. So, you know, everybody, we're just all just doing our best. So,
We're rooting for you.
yeah, you will get through it. You will get through it. Just that's my piece to anyone who's like tempted to like give up on certain safety things just because they're exhausted. Do what you have to do, but it won't be that much longer. So keep that in mind when you make those choices.
All right.
All
So, do
right.
you have tweets?
Yeah, let me see. Oh, let me pull them up. Tweet, tweet, tweet. Okay. Me to my kids. You've been on the iPad too long. Go watch TV.
Hello.
Oh, Yeah, you didn't hear it?
No, I just heard "me to my kids," even on the two. Oh, now I got it.
And that I forgot to credit. That was at Baron von Bike.
Got it. All right. So I have one from Dina Sandoval. My toddler had a major meltdown because I wouldn't let him eat gummies. I said, no way, and put them in my purse. My husband and I exchanged shifts. He took the kids. As I proceeded to drive to work, what did I see? I couldn't help myself. I earned those gummies.
Abby has Abby has issues. I'm stupid. Abby has issues says, no thanks. 5 hours of energy sounds exhausting.
Oh, yes. All right. I have one from H. Solthers. She bought a 4-month-old double stroller for $80 when they were originally priced at $350. Hashtag mom wins. I wish I could
Nice.
find deals as good as that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good one. 21st century SAHM. Not stay at home mom. That would be like a really, really long Twitter handle. Anyway, she says, my favorite parenthood thing is dragging the kids out of bed at 7 for school all week and then seeing them bright-eyed at 5:30 a.m. on Saturday.
That is the damn truth. Tim cannot wake up during the week, but on the weekends, he wakes up literally at the same time. Ugh.
So
Anyways,
sad.
it is. Oh gosh, he has a really long, his username is Exploding Unicorn.
Oh, yeah. He's huge.
Yes. He has a really long, name.
I can't remember it.
Not handle, but
But his
name
real
is.
name.
Well, I mean, it's not his real name because it says, in quotations, bare minimum parenting comes out in 9 days. So I'm guessing he updates that, but it's really long, so I couldn't see his handle. But anyways,
Oh, he
he
changed
said,
it.
yeah, I'm sure he changes it every day until
James
bare minimum
Breakwell.
parenting. There we
That's
go.
him. Anyway, go on.
So, 4-year-old. We don't need to be scared of monsters. Me. That's right. 4. They're scared of mom.
That's funny.
Accurate.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we hope you guys
Have a
maybe
good
learned
week.
something, enjoyed it. Have a great week, and thanks for listening to us. Thanks for being our friends, our mom friends. And
See you again soon.
follow, share, and be our friends.
We're not desperate or
Bye.
anything. Bye.